Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing This Week, August 23rd, 2014. We're going to get started here in just a minute or two. I'm going to get one quick thing set up for everybody. And see, I'm going to post here the Insiders Q&A. So if you have any questions on anything we're covering today or just in general, you can go ahead and click on there. It'll take you right to the form. So let's go ahead and get underway. Okay, so of course brought to you by Seriously Simple Marketing over at SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. My name is Chris Mercer, content developer, optimization expert, host of course of Digital Marketing This Week. And yeah, just call me Mercer. This week's focus topic is all about WordPress security. So if you've either had a site hacked, wondering how that may have happened, or if you've just heard about it, which more than likely you have, then we're going to cover all these little ins and outs. Fairly high-level view, but some tactical things that you can actually implement too. So make sure that you are taking notes. And again, if you have questions over any of this, because I know it can get a little confusing, just go ahead and click on that little Get Started box on the Insiders Q&A, or you can just go to ssm.tips/question, and it'll take you to the same spot, and that's where you can pop in your form and your specific question. Again, be as detailed as you can, just because it makes it a lot easier to get you a good quality answer. So let's go ahead and jump back in. Now this is WordPress security. Now again, we're going to cover this high-level view. In particular, we're going to cover the 5 simple things. Now remember, it's simple, which is kind of like high level, right? So simple things you can do to keep your WordPress site safe. And there's one thing that almost everybody does that basically opens the doors to hackers. So we're going to cover that as well. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go through these things, and then, as a little special added bonus for the tools and tricks part of the show here, we're going to actually go through and harden a WordPress site, or actually. So I'm going to do it with one of our example sites, so you can see that kind of as we go through it live, and hopefully you can apply some of what we're going to do to your own site. All right, let's go ahead and get underway. So first thing that you need to do, now you may have heard this before, but and this is the reason this is number 1, and it's just something I had to put in there because it is so incredibly important. You must properly update. Now, this means always installing the security updates, and you know it's a security update specifically with the WordPress core. Okay, and this is when it says when you log in your WordPress dashboard and it says WordPress needs to be updated. Something that might go 4, from when they go from 2 to 3 to 4. Okay, that's a major update. In fact, WordPress 4.0 is coming out shortly. That is a major update. Now, that's not what we're talking about here. Those updates you actually want to postpone. What we're talking about is security updates. Security updates are normally that 3rd digit. So in this case, it'll be 3.9.1 moves to 3.9.2. I've never seen it happen, actually. I want to say never, like it'll never possibly happen to you, and this is why you always, of course, want to make sure you have a backup running. But I've personally never experienced or heard of a security update interfering with something on a WordPress site, like taking down a WordPress site. And everyone's, when it comes to updates, you do need to be concerned, like, should I update because it could affect plugins and themes and everything else? But with security updates, because of the code that's being adjusted, it's not adjusting anything that's a hook or a filter or anything that a plugin or a theme should be messing with. It's something that it's a security update that's adjusting the core code, and because of it's so deep internal, it shouldn't affect anything ever except making your site more secure. So you really should have those automatically installed. And what you can actually do for that is there's a setting that the new WordPress, when you've updated to maybe 3.9, 3.8, somewhere around there, it came out with these automatic security updates. There is a setting in your WP config file if you want to go and turn it off, and I can show you that a little later too if you have questions on it. But it should automatically be enabled, and it was sort of by default now. And so you may have noticed, maybe you got an email from your WordPress site saying, hey, you've automatically been updated. So that's just for security updates. It doesn't cover the major updates because I know that stuff can break things. But for security updates, you want to keep that enabled. It's very, very important. Now this also includes themes and plugins. So when your theme updates, you'll want to make sure that you update your theme. Of course, there's a caveat to that. If you've customized your theme and you're not doing what they call child themes, sometimes you can blow away your customizations. So again, this is an important reason to have backups at any point. And plugins, for the most part, again, I've never seen a plugin update and all of a sudden break stuff because they're fairly well tested, but it can happen. and that's why you want to have backups. So if you have a backup, you can update worry-free, because if something does happen, all you need to do is just restore your site, and it all goes back to normal, maybe with a 30-minute delay or something. And again, we talked about this earlier, but there are times when you should not automatically update, and that's for major updates. So for example, WordPress goes from 3.9.2, which is where it is now, to 4.0. When 4.0 comes out, you want to wait a little while. Just, they've done a lot of beta testing and a lot of people have used it, and it should be fairly secure and safe. But there's going to be conflicts. There just will. Absolutely will. Because what will happen is all of a sudden it goes from maybe a few 100,000 people using the beta version to millions and millions of people that will automatically update because they just don't think about it. They'll just update it, and it'll break, and then themes will all of a sudden get support, tickets will be rise because maybe Optimized Press isn't compatible with something on 4.0. And so let somebody else do all that. Wait for about a month on a major update, and it's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to wait about a month. So if it comes out in the beginning part of September, we won't even think about the beginning part of October. And what we'll do is we'll go and we'll Google and we'll say WordPress 4.0 and then Optimized Press. And then we're going to see if anyone's complaining about conflicts or if there's been support tickets opened up or things like that. Google will find that for us. And we'll do the same thing with major plugins. So we might just type in WordPress 4.0 conflicts, and then we'll see if any sort of people are complaining about plugins that maybe we use. Things like Digital Access Pass, some of the security plugins, things like that. So highly unlikely that that stuff will happen, but it does happen, and that's why we wait. And if it is out there, we let other people sort of go ahead of us and figure out those solutions. And once they're figured out and implemented and updated, then we'll go through an update. So thing number 2 that you want to worry about after you've got updates, you want to make sure that you go through and you audit your logins. This is, again, something that's simple, but it's incredibly important. You want to dump the admin user. So by default, if you're using scripts like Fantastico or things like that, when you go to your cPanel and you log in and you install WordPress automatically, the little one-click install type stuff, most of the time it'll put in admin as the user. And so your username automatically is admin. It's really easy to figure out, and hackers, by and large, will create little robot scripts. And remember, you're not dealing with a person necessarily. You're dealing with their robot, right? Well, their robot will hack at your site and go input user and then password 123 ABC, and then it'll do user, password ABC, ABC, and it'll do password, and it'll do this hundreds of thousands of times in a very short period of time if you let it. And so you're dealing with robot scripts that don't care. They'll try as many times as possible. So remember, don't think about this like there's a human trying to get into your machine or into your website. It's these little robot scripts that they create that are trying to do it, and they can iterate over and over and over again. So by default, a lot of people have admin as the username, and it's obviously the admin account. So these scripts are designed to input that username, and if it exists, and WordPress says, oh yeah, the user exists, but the password's wrong, now at least they know they have an active site with the admin username, and they can just hammer it. So that's one thing in particular. Now, the other thing, of course, is right along those same lines is strengthen your passwords. This means using capital letters, lowercase letters, symbols, making it at least 15 digits long. And that's what, again, what we do. So we make it really, really long because it's practically impossible at that point to do what they call a brute force attack, which is just sort of randomly try stuff over and over again until it works, because your password is so strong. And we use a password manager to do that. We use something called LastPass, which is amazing, and you'll actually see that in action in the live part of the show when we go into the actual screen share and show you how to harden a WordPress site. But the password managers make it incredibly secure. Again, we use LastPass. It automatically generates a password for us. It'll save them, and we can share those passwords with other people in our team because we have a team. So we'll share with other people, and then if for whatever reason they don't need access anymore, we can just remove access from them. So it makes it super easy to transport stuff back and forth, especially if you're doing things like working with a developer. Maybe you've got some additional customized code that you're working with. You've got a vendor who needs to be in there, or maybe some authors if you've got a blog with multiple authors, and you can give them access to the WordPress site through LastPass. They technically don't ever see the password, which is kind of cool. And then they can get in there, and if you don't want to share access anymore, just remove the access. Okay, so hide the obvious. This is thing number 3. So what do we mean by this? This means adjusting your WP login message. So there's actually things you can do where when you go into WordPress, it'll say if you go to try to log into WordPress and you type in the wrong username, but it's the correct password, what'll happen is it'll say, oh, your username's incorrect. Well, that's a clue that the password was right, just for the wrong username, and vice versa. So if you type in the right wrong username and the wrong password, it'll say, "Oh, your username is wrong." So I mean, it kind of goes. It'll actually tell you, give you hints as to what you got right. And so if you can adjust that, you can just remove that entirely. And there are plugins that'll do that for you, so it makes it nice and easy. But that's one thing that you can adjust, because again, why make it easier for the little robots? And then this is an interesting technique that I learned earlier on some training that we were doing earlier this week on this topic. And what this is this is really cool. And we're actually we're gonna start doing this. We don't do this yet, admittedly, but we're going to. And what this is you create a lower level user account, right? So let's say at an author level, because this would be somebody who's creating blog posts, let's say. So let's say it's just you, and I'm going to keep this really small. So let's say it's just you running your own blog. You have an admin account where you kind of do all your back-end admin stuff, and most of us also use the admin account for blog posts, right? If you're doing blog posts. Well, bots can go through and scrape the users that are posting content, and then they basically can understand what the user names are and then try to hack the account from there, right? So if they do that, now they've got access to your admin account. And because it's public, because you're posting out there under that user, under that author ID, then it's a lot easier to find that. So instead of doing that, what you can do is you can post as, you can actually assign an author, create a new user, that's just an author tag. And then, and this is in the WordPress dashboard when you select your users, there's subscriber and there's author and there's editor and there's admin. So just make it like an author level. And so that way, if they do get into that account, it's just an author level. They can't really change plugins. They can't adjust stuff. They can't delete things. They can't add stuff. So that's a kind of an interesting idea. And again, if you have questions over this or want to see how that's done, we'll show you in the live portion when we go into the screen share here. I shouldn't say live. This is live. But as we go into the screen share portion. And the other thing is hiding the standard folders. So what this means is going through, right now, everything starts with WP underscore. Okay, so all of your tables, all of your the content folder, and the best thing about WordPress is how open it is. The worst thing about WordPress is because it is so open, everyone sort of installs the basic WordPress installs, and then everybody knows where everything is. Because, for example, all of your information is contained under WP content. I'd venture to say most of you on this call, probably all of you, have your information under WP content. And if I went to your website and went to WP content, it would show me your themes and your plugins and everything else that you've got there. Now that's not necessarily bad because there's a lot of plugins that'll secure stuff for you, which we'll show you in a second. But if you instead of WP content, it was called my site underscore content or something like that, where the prefix was different, that would make it practically impossible for a bot to go around and find your WordPress site, because what they're looking for is WP underscore, right? So WP underscore admin, WP underscore content, WP underscore includes. Those are the files that make up your WordPress site. And so instead of looking for those, or actually it will look for those, but since you've sort of hidden it off on the side, it's technically not going to find them. It'll just go right by your site and then go into somebody else's. So hiding the standard folders is also a good thing. Now that is admittedly a little more difficult for a site that's already established, because you've got to do a little stuff to move things around, but it is possible. Next is starting at home. Again, simple things. Start at home. You got to keep your own PC, your own Mac, whatever you're using, keep that secure and safe. So this is what they call the access point. So when you're accessing the network, so you want to make sure that you're keeping your own stuff safe. This means using virus scan software like WebRoot or McAfee, Norton Utilities scans as well. You can also use something called, for PCs, malware. What's it called? Malware. It's a malware scanner. I think it's called Malwarebytes. It is called Malwarebytes. And it's a great thing too. So if you happen to get some sort of nasty virus off the internet when you're browsing on somebody else's site and they have malware and somehow your computer gets infected, instead of sort of keying, because theoretically there could be what they call keyloggers out there, which basically send username and password data to somebody, everything that you're typing, to somebody out in Russia or China or wherever the hacker is. And it just reports back everything you're typing in your computer. You never know this is going on, but if you have something like Malwarebytes or some of these other scanners, it scans for that sort of software on your PC so that you don't get it. And for a lot of you who might have families, it's not so much your browsing that you're necessarily worried about, because you kind of know if you're installing something. But if you've got maybe kids that are going on and they're changing your wallpaper on your computer and they're downloading free wallpaper and all that sort of stuff, those tend to be the apps and the stuff where people are putting nasty viruses. Because they just is innocuous. It looks like, oh, it's no big deal, I'm just changing my wallpaper, and yeah, I'll accept whatever, and then they install it, and then it installs scripts on your computer, and that's how you get viruses. So it's not by visiting traditional kind of good sites. Okay, so that's that. Now let's move on to thing number 5, using a plugin. This is by far the simplest thing that you can do. This is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do this. There are multiple plugins you can use for WordPress. And that includes Bulletproof Security, which we've used in the past. We've also used All-in-One Security. And then there's iTheme Security. And iTheme Security is the one that we actually use now. So that's the one that we recommend that you guys use, and we'll show you why again here in a second. Avoid. This is the one thing that almost everybody does. Almost everybody does. Please, please, please don't do this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Deactivated plugins and themes. Don't just deactivate them, delete them. So deactivating does not mean delete. What happens is it's deactivated so it doesn't have any effect on your WordPress site. It doesn't actually change anything. It doesn't have any functionality on your WordPress site, but the actual files are still there. So, you know, I'll kind of go over some hacker stories. I've been hacked numerous times, right? So part of the reason is because we're public and we're always advertising our sites. But the reason that we got hacked, there's only two reasons ever that I've gotten hacked. One is because I had deactivated themes that were not themes or plugins that had vulnerabilities that I didn't delete. So that was one thing. Again, simple thing I should have just done. If I'd done it, it would have been fine. The other reason I had gotten hacked was because I had outdated themes, plugins, or WordPress installs. That's the only other reason. If I had just done my updates and if I had deleted things when I wasn't using them, then we would have been golden, and we would not have hacker stories. Now, obviously, you know, it kind of works out for us because we teach so much about WordPress and websites and all that fun stuff. So, you know, it gives us an opportunity to learn and practice real time on how to fix all that. But doesn't mean we want to do it again. So remember, every deactivated plugin or theme, right? Every deactivated plugin or theme. This also includes WordPress installs. So if you've created WordPress installs, like maybe a test installation to test something out to see if it's going to work, and then you just sort of forgot about it, that happens a lot, right? I mean, it happens with us too. We create WordPress install in a subfolder or subdirectory somewhere, and we forget about it because we were just doing it to test a theme or to play with a certain plugin and see how something operated or to test a concept, and then we forgot about it, and then it went out of date because we weren't paying attention, right? Because there's so many of them, and then hackers get in there. It's an open door. It's like an unlocked door, or it potentially could be, even if the plugin at that time is secure, but if later somebody finds a vulnerability. So I'll give you an example of this. If you had All-in-One SEO, which was an SEO plugin, there was a huge vulnerability that was discovered with that plugin. And what happened, you could, if you hadn't updated it, what happens is once that plugin vulnerability is announced, everybody knows about it. So now the bad guys probably already knew about it, but if they didn't, they do now, and they create scripts that go through and they look for that plugin, which is, it's just not hard to find, right? Especially if you're not hiding your folders. So they look for people that have that plugin installed, and then they take advantage of whatever the exploit was, you know, inject their little script or whatever it is, and then you get hacked through that plugin. And if you didn't keep it updated, maybe you just deactivated it because you went to Yoast SEO, right? So that WordPress SEO that Yoast plugin has, and you didn't and you just deactivated the one, but you didn't delete it. That's what can hurt you. So you want to make sure that you are always, 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 always deleting your old stuff. Okay. Now let's go ahead into the live sort of demonstration part of this. I am going to bring in our demo site, a little Ask Mercer demo site. We play with all sorts of stuff here, so that's why the screen looks a little different, because we actually used a plugin at one point for a demonstration to show you how you can change the login screen, and you'll see that in there. So I'm going to point out a few different things here. First, we do not have an admin. So this site already is hardened a little bit, and all hardening is really just securing your WordPress site. So the one thing we did is we don't have an admin username. So in this case, the admin username, you know, we just did a little thing here. So, you know, ask admin 13, just kind of something that was easy for us to remember, and then would automatically keep somebody from using admin, right, as a username. So we don't have that in there. The other thing that we have, and this is what I was talking about with LastPass, is we're using LastPass. So by default, if I was going to give somebody admin access to this, you can see it automatically loads my password. So I don't have to worry about remembering, you know, tough passwords or anything like that. And I'm going to show you why this matters in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. And we're now in our dashboard. Now, we have not touched this site in a while, okay, because we've been using this as, again, just an example site that we keep off on the side. So we're going to go through, this is probably what a lot of your sites look like. So we're going to go through here, and let's take a look at what we need to do first. The very first thing that I see on this site that we need to do is update, okay? We're horribly out of date on a lot of different stuff. So first thing I'm going to do is click on the updates. Now, WordPress 3.9.2 is the most recent. We'll know that in just a second. See where it says this right here. So latest version, we have the latest version, we're good. 3.92 says here, oops, 3.92. So we know that we're most recent update. And it also says future security updates will be applied automatically. That's how you know if it's turned on. So I know one question we might get is, how do I know if those security updates are turned on? It'll say it right there. If it doesn't, then they're not. Okay, so we know the core is updated. That's cool. The first thing I'm going to do is update my plugins. So I've got a Kismet, Broken Link Checker, Jetpack, and then WordPress Editorial Counter. I'm going to go ahead and select all of those, and we're going to update. Now, they all look compatible for 3.92, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and just update those. Pop quiz, what did I not do before doing all of this? And the answer is I did not make a backup. So if something horribly goes wrong, then we're kind of, if the site goes down, I'm going to have to show you how to restore a site with no backup, which is bad. So don't do that. You must have a backup. But again, this is just an example site. So for our purposes, we actually just delete this and then reinstall WordPress all the time over it. So that's why. So not to justify the bad habit, but you must always have a backup. Okay, so I'm just going to assume we had a backup there. And all the plugins installed fine. Now I'm going to go through and install. So we've got this old version of OptimizePress 2.0. There's the new version that has come out, which happens a lot because they update it all the time, which is a good thing because it's new features, plus there's security stuff that'll come out and they'll update. So we'll go ahead and do that. Just as a side note, for those of you who are using the old version of OptimizePress, make sure you're on, I think it's when they were doing OptimizePress 1.0, which is the old version of OptimizePress, they stopped at, I think it was like 1.6, somewhere around there. So make sure that your version number is 1.6 because there are hacks out there for versions that are lower than that. So let's see. Okay, so now we have got, just going to click on updates again, and whenever you click on updates, it just goes through and checks and makes sure. We are good. All plugins, all themes are up to date. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my themes section here. So we've got these themes that we're not really using. Okay, so do I really want to go through? Let's see. So dismiss that. We don't need that. So 2011, I'm never really going to use 2011. So I'm going to go ahead and delete 2011. Okay, so this is an old sort of standard WordPress theme. Why keep it out there? Now, the good news about these WordPress themes, and again, WordPress themes, not, these are the ones that were created, the default themes that were created by WordPress, not the ones that maybe you get as like a free theme on WordPress.org. These are ones that came with the installation. So these ones are really secure and they update all the time. So I always keep these updated. So I'm not going to worry too much about them. But in keeping with what we were talking about, I'm not really going to need these. So I'm going to go ahead and delete them instead. And the only one I'm going to keep up is 2014. And the only reason for that is because occasionally I might want to update OptimizePress manually. So maybe if something happens, I'm editing the code or something like that, something goes weird, and I need to delete it and then reinstall OptimizePress. If I ever need to do that, I need a backup theme. So, and everything needs to switch to that. So that's why I'm just going to keep this one there. But it is updated, so we're good to go there. Now I'm going to go through and look at my plugins. Remember, there's two things I said that we got hit by. One is deactivated plugins that weren't deleted or themes, and then the other one was the fact that we weren't updating. So we've got our updates done. Now I'm going to go see, and what I'm doing is in the plugins, you see that little inactive right there? So there it is, told you. So this is DigDig. So either I need to activate this and use it. This is a social plugin that allows us to share posts and things like this. Now in this case, again, example site, we're not actually trying to share anything because it's not used for anything. It changes all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we're not using it. So we delete that file. And actually, I'm going to show you one other. Let me just see because I'm also curious. So version 5.3.6, and I'm just going to see if it happens to update digdigwordpress.org. There's our plugin page. Let's see what the latest version is. So it looks like 5.3.6 is the latest version, so that's good. At least it's not an old version. It could be worse. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete it anyway because we don't need it. Delete. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a little bonus here too. Actually, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to show you a different way to do this. Okay. It's still a bonus, but it's a different way of accessing the bonus. All right. So now we've got everything's updated. I've got no more inactive themes. I have no more inactive plugins that I'm not using. They're all deleted. I don't have any other WordPress installs except for this one. Let's just pretend. So we're good to go. We now have a clean, updated site that should be reasonably secure, except that I don't have a security plugin. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, we use something called iTheme Security. There is a pro version for this, but the free version is also really, really good. We use the pro version because we also use their sister plugin called Backup Buddy to do backups. And these are all on the Seriously Simple Marketing sites, and they are amazing. And personally, I like, so let's type in iTheme Security. Again, the free version is great and will do a great job. So not saying you have to get the pro version. The only reason we do it is because we like having the extra features. And I'm going to go ahead and install this. So it used to be called Better WP Security, for those who might be familiar with that name. I'm going to click Install Now. Yes, we do want to install this plugin. And again, the reason that we do iThemes is because it's a development company. So they actually bought Better WP Security. I'm going to go ahead and activate this. They bought WP Security. They've now got a ton of money behind it. There's a lot of resources behind it. So, and they work with all these big companies like Security, which I'll show you in a second, that scans for malware. And they're known for finding WordPress exploits and finding plugins and notifying plugin developers if their security is lax. Even companies like Yoast, where they do that, Yoast has this big WordPress SEO plugin. He works with companies like Sucuri. Let me just show you what that is. It's Sucuri, S-U-C-U-R-I. And what this does, this is also super, oh man, no it's not. I thought it was. It's S-U-C-U, .net, that's why. So .net. All right, so security.net. What they offer is, this is what we use for here, malware detection. So they have all of these different services, but there's actually a scanner. There was a scanner. Let's see if this is it. I think it's actually under, surprised I don't have a link to it. They totally should. But I think it's actually, it was popping up earlier. I think it's site check. Yep, right here. All right, so there's your bonus. I don't know why that's not on their site, but it should be. Okay, so what this will do, and you can run your own sites through this just to see, so let's just do askmercer.com. And you scan the website. What this will do is actually go through and scan the site itself for any malware scripts that it knows of. And Security is always, they're one of the best. I'd say they're the leader, if not one of the leaders in security when it comes to WordPress. So absolutely amazing company. And let me show you part of the reason why here. Let me see if I can get back to their main site while that's scanning. So security.net, there's a blog somewhere, I think. I don't know why, I just don't use the power of Google instead of just trying to find it manually. So much faster. There we go. All right, so see these things here, so they do everything. So not just WordPress, but everything. So there's the mobile redirect. This was a big one that a lot of people, in fact, guys like Ryan Lee, website marketers, big internet marketers were hit by this one, this mobile redirect that was directing websites to porn. This was actually tough too, because it would, if you opened up the link, if you were in an email and you opened up the link that they sent to you, it would direct to a porn site. You'd be like, well, that's weird. I didn't do that. You back up, maybe click on the link again, and it goes to the normal site, the regular site. And so you couldn't actually tell. And so it was a real big problem. So there we go. So this is Yoast's. This is MailPoet. They've talked about. So this is a kind of a nice thing to keep up to date and sort of see. Let's see. You could go through and say, like, let's say for example, there's a big commenting plugin called Discuss, something that actually we use on Seriously Simple site. So you could go through here and say, oh, let's type in your plugin name. Turns out there was a vulnerability in Discuss that came out not that long ago. Okay, now this means that this stuff is patched. So what they do before they tell the world, they actually go to the developer and say, hey, listen, we found this vulnerability, you probably should fix this. And so they will fix it, and then they will tell the world that it's out there to allow people to make sure that they update if they don't. This is why you automatically update plugins. So we went through, and we of course already had the patched version because it automatically updates through WordPress, the plugin notification, and as long as we keep it plugged in or the plugin updated, we're fine. But if you didn't, you're open to all these. W3 Total Cache, a lot of you might use this, or Super Cache. So for caching, those are So all of this other stuff, super cache vulnerability. So if you're not updating your plugins, you're asking for it. Because remember, if you don't think, oh, no big deal, well, let's say I'm a hacker and I'm not keeping up to date. I could just go to this blog and type in stuff. I'm like, oh, look, Supercache has got a vulnerability. What is it? Oh, perfect. I'm gonna go create a script that goes out in there and hack sites. So again, that's one of the reasons. Okay, so let's go back to our scan. Let's finish scanning here. So we've got no malware detected on the site, which is great. It hasn't been blacklisted by anybody, which is great. There's no injected spam. There's no defacements, which is great. And then the website firewall is something that they don't have just because we don't install the firewall. But of course, they sell it if you wanted to. We're not going to do that at this point, but this is useful to know what's going on. So if something's happening with your site that's a little weird, run it through this sitecheck.security.net, and then it will automatically scan your site and it will tell you. And this is exactly what we did. When we had our sites hacked, we're like, oh man, what's going on? So we would go through, we ran it through this system, and it told us where the files were that were hacked, where the issue was that it found, and it gave us an ability to go through and try to find it. Alrighty, so now we've got this. Let's go through back to our plugin. Okay, so we've got iThemes installed here, so we can either secure the site now or what's new in 4.0. Now the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to go to security. We'll go to dashboard. So we've got our new security thing. We're going to go into dashboard. Now I'm going to show you a lot of stuff here. So take notes on these different items, and then also make sure that if you have questions to go to ssm.tips/question and ask your questions, because I know that this can get a little rough sometimes, but I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Very first steps. This is one cool thing about this plugin. Remember, we're using the free version still. We need to make a backup of the site. It said, hey, before you do this, make a backup of your database. Remember in WordPress, when you're doing backups, there are two main sections of WordPress. There are the files, which is all of your content, your themes, your plugins, all of your posts and all that stuff, and pages, everything you've created, the actual content, all the images, all that stuff. And then there is the database. And the database, actually I shouldn't say that the database contains all of your actual posts and images and all that. The files are your themes and plugins. Okay. So what we just backed up here as part of this system is the database. So all of our content, so this is the blog post, the actual words in the blog post, the images that we stored, all that sort of stuff. Any attachments that we've uploaded, all of that is now backed up. If something happened to the site and it screws up a theme or a plugin or something like that, that stuff is not backed up. That's under the files. But at least the main part, which is the database, is automatically backed up now. Now, automatic file updates. This is many functions require it. Basically, in order to secure your site, is going to need access to these files. So instead of us having to manually go in and FTP and adjust our files, we're just going to say, yep, I want this to automatically do that. If you are more in line with not giving it access because you're really comfortable going in and editing through FTP, then just don't do that. It's easy enough. Now the one-click secure I'm not going to do because I want to go through and actually show you all the different settings. And then of course the help us improve here. I'm not going to do that only because we're not actually going to be using it much on this site. So, okay. And I shouldn't say we're not going to be using the plugin much, but we're not going to use the site that much. So it's not really that useful for them. All right, very first thing we're going to do. So we're on the dashboard for iThemes security. One of the coolest things about it is it will automatically prioritize and show you where your vulnerabilities are. You can see all the different vulnerabilities that this found. And then what it says basically what it looks for that's already done. So the admin user, it didn't find an admin user because we already had that part done. And the ID with number 1 has been removed, which is great. So because sometimes it'll just look for the ID, user number 1. So that's not there. And then our database table prefix is not using WP because when we did the install for this, we didn't, our database, remember this is where the actual content is all stored, the post and the images and the attachments and all that stuff. The database itself doesn't use WP underscore, it uses a different prefix. So that's all fixed. So we don't have to worry about that. But let's go through and see. So login area not protected from brute force attacks. What this means is these little robot scripts can go out there and they can just hammer and try username and password, username and password, username and password, username and password over and over and over again forever. And if a bunch of them do it, your site will go down just because your server will get so much traffic that it'll shut down your site. So we're going to fix that because we don't want to have people doing brute force attacks. So we just click on fix that. It takes us right to brute force detection, this little section here. And I'm going to enable brute force detection, and let's look at the default. So max login attempts per host. This basically is per computer or per device. So 5 attempts per device. So if somebody can't get in from their own device within, let's say they're coming in through a laptop and they're trying to log into the site 5 times or more, and they can't figure it out, then we're gonna lock them out for a little bit. this one for user. So if a user, so they try another computer, maybe they go to a mobile phone and try it. So for the user itself, the actual username. So let's say, again, admin. If let's say I kept the default admin username as admin, and if somebody tried to use admin 10 times, then it'll lock them out if they didn't get it successful. And then the number of times to remember, so 10 times within 5 minutes, basically. And then anybody that's trying to use the admin username. Now this is really handy for us because we've already changed that username, so the default username now is not admin. So if somebody does try to log in with the username of admin, then we know they're a bad guy because we obviously don't use that. So I'm going to automatically add them to a banned list. And we're going to save our changes. And again, this is all the free version, so you can do this if you haven't already. One other thing here that has popped up, this little temporarily whitelist my IP. So what this means is sometimes you can make a site so secure that you lock yourself out, and you don't want to do that. So you just click on temporarily whitelist my IP, and it'll make sure that you can get into your own site from this computer, whatever computer you're using, for a period of 24 hours, just in case. Worst case scenario, if you do, just by the way, lock yourself out and you can't figure out how to get back in, if you just go back into your cPanel into File Manager or go into FTP, just delete the plugin, and it'll automatically let you back in. Okay, so now see, we don't have any scheduled database backups. Silly us. Why is that? Now, our other sites use Backup Buddy, so that automatically takes care of that. But in this case, let's go ahead and do database backups. Now you can see here how we did a prefix, right? Some random characters that we put in for a database prefix. What yours probably says, if you did the default installation, is it'll say WP underscore. And so if somebody's looking for WP underscore, they're going to find you. If they're looking for WP underscore for us, they're not going to find it because it all starts with this random characters. So that's what that prefix thing means. So I'm going to go ahead and enable database backups. We're going to back up every 3 days. For us, we're going to do it every 30 days because we, again, don't change the site very often. This is just for an example. So we're going to go ahead and save changes there. And now we go back to the dashboard. And let's see what's next. Malware scanning. Now this is so cool. This is one of the features that just came out on this one because again, this is because these plugins are paid, or they have a paid version. But because they have a paid version, they're making money. Because they're making money, the developer is making money, and because the developer is making money, they're more likely to support it and to do a good job. So this is why I don't like using free plugins for something this important. For anything like regarding backups or for security, because again, we're an online business. So if our site goes down because of something silly, like we tried to save a few bucks on a security plugin and they didn't update it, and then there's vulnerabilities that it could have found and didn't, that's just doesn't make sense for us. So we always do paid stuff, but because again he has a paid version, the free version is still good, right? So he added this malware scanning section, so we go to fix it. And remember that thing I was talking about with security that did that little site check thing, this thing right here? If you go back here, let's see, enable malware scanning. What this does is you can go to virustotal.com. This is a little free thing that basically hundreds of thousands of people are always reporting to this service what the latest things are. It's like a database of viruses and malware. And we're just going to go to sign in. This again is LastPass, so I don't have to worry about anything other than just typing in. It selects it automatically because I signed it in LastPass as a password manager. I have no idea what the password is because it's random when I set up the account, but that signs us in. And then we're going to go to our API key. Grab your API key, and this is free, by the way. This whole VirusTotal thing is free, and if you need directions, you just click right there. And we type in the virus key thing, hit save all changes, and now instead of us having to wait until we get hacked or just to remember to scan our software, or our site, it'll automatically scan it all the time with these malware scans. And so if something does happen to trigger malware that somehow got through or whatever, or maybe you install a plugin that had malware on it, it'll catch it. So super cool stuff. Okay, so now we've got that high priority item fixed. Now, just because these items are on here doesn't mean you have to go to 0, right? So let's see, strong passwords for users. Yes, we want to make sure our passwords are strong for everybody. So if somebody did create a user account, now this is only if you have multiple user accounts. So if you have a plugin that needs WordPress and they're logging in through creating subscriber accounts or author accounts, things like that. If you are assigning admins or multiple people in your blog, okay, so we are going to do that. So let's make strong passwords for everybody. So not just for the admins. We want it for subscribers, And if you do this level, it'll do it for contributors, authors, editors, everybody. So, so the minimum role is a subscriber. We're going to hit save changes, and basically what this will do is make sure that you use a combination of lowercase and uppercase and numbers and symbols and all that fun stuff. So that's strong password enforcement. And let me just show you what this is. Actually, I'm going to do one other thing from a security standpoint that I didn't mention that I should have. Old users. Okay, so this is an example of somebody who no longer works for our company, and actually this email's been disconnected, but technically they could get in if they remember their password still. So if you have an old user on your site, like maybe you gave it to a vendor for some help for something, created an account and then just forgot about it. Look at this, I've got an old user, that's an admin. If they ever wanted to, they can go in here and hurt stuff. So we don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete. And I'm going to attribute all posts to me, okay? Because they were just doing example posts. And then we're going to delete that user. So that user is now gone. Now, I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to go into my user account, and I'm going to make sure, see this little nickname thing? So I'm going to change that to Mercer, because that nickname is really my password, which I don't, I'm sorry, my username, which I don't want, right? So I'm going to have it be, instead of my username, I want the nickname to just be Mercer. And then I'm going to display the name publicly as Mercer, so it's using my nickname. And that way those two things are always separate. So very, very important thing. So we're going to update profile. Okay. So now I'm going to go back into my security plugin. And again, there will be replays of this, so if some of this is kind of going a little fast, I understand. That's what the replays are for, and of course, if you have questions. Next one, user nicknames may be, okay, so I just changed this. I should have just let this do it. So, but this means login username may be publicly available through the site. So, as it will show, let me just pop into the main site here so you can see. The nickname shows in a lot of themes, it'll automatically show the blog posts, right? And so it'll show, let's go in here. So see it says Mercer right there? So this is the nickname, right? So that's where that shows. And so we wouldn't necessarily want that to automatically show. So that's what this will adjust. So in this case, we're going to hit fix it. Though I believe now we should be good. Force users to choose unique nicknames. So that means going forward, when new users sign up, or if there's a user that tries to make an edit to their account and those are the same thing, it'll give them an error and it'll tell them, hey, you got to change your nickname. So that'll happen automatically now. All right, so let me go back to our dashboard. Now at this point, all of the major stuff, all the high priority stuff is fixed. We don't have to worry about it. So that's good. So all the high priorities. So let's talk about some of the medium stuff. And you can see like all of the different things. Like if we had done a webinar on all the things you need to fix with WordPress, it would have been huge. But in this case, if you use a plugin, it's just kind of super easy to go through here and be like, okay, yeah, I could use this. So website not protecting against bots looking for known vulnerabilities. So let's turn on 404 stuff. All right, so what this means is these little bots, these little programs are going around and they're looking for different files that are in your site. Well, if your site doesn't have that file, your site will give them back a 404. Well, what this will do, and the 404 is just that thing that says, oh yeah, the page isn't found. So what this will do is this will actually go through, and if somebody is looking for 404, right, they're loading up pages that don't exist on your site, this will actually go through, and we use this on Serious Simple Marketing, this exact feature here. And we get these a lot. We get notices a lot of people that are looking for stuff that doesn't exist on our site, these little bots, and it'll lock them out. So it'll actually go through and say, okay, well, they're clearly looking for pages that don't exist. Why are they doing that? Why are people constantly, and it's not like once or twice, it's when they do it in a 5-minute period and they do 20 different, what human being would pull up the same page 20 times and get an error every single time and still try to refresh that page? And the answer is no human being would, but bots do. So because of that, we want to go through and make sure we filter those out. So we're going to save changes there. And what happens is, again, if the bot is looking for something and it finds it, then it tries to go and hack your site. But if it can't find it, then what's happening here is it sort of knocks on the door and says, hey, it's basically telling the security plugin, I'm a bot. And the security plugin goes, oh, you know what? We're going to ban you from even seeing the site. So then it can't even see the site. And that's what that does. So we're going to go back to dashboard here. And I know we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to get into questions because we've got a couple of good ones, which will take some time. I'm going to go through and explain these and maybe not fix them here. So dashboard available. So this is if you are the only person on your site, right? So we run Seriously Simple Marketing. We've got a team of people, and it needs to be available 24 hours. So we don't have this enabled, but you could, if you knew that, hey, you know what, this is just my site, and I don't work on it at 3 in the morning. So you could actually put a time in here, we call it way mode, and where your site, your admin, isn't even available. You can't go to your admin page from like midnight until 5 in the morning if you know that you're never going to be available for that period. So you can actually set up a time and days here during the time for specific days on when it's away so that you can't access it. Or that means you can't, but also means other people can. So there's that. The scheduled database, but not backing up files. So this is, again, we use Backup Buddy. They're obviously suggesting Backup Buddy because that's their same company. But again, cannot recommend it enough. It is super easy. It's one-click simple. They're constantly updating it because it is a paid plugin. So we love it. Also makes it easy for moving sites and migrating sites and all that fun stuff. Not looking for changed files. So what will happen here, this is actually will scan your website, and if there's a file that's been changed, it'll actually send you an email and says, hey, this file was just changed. Now sometimes it's going to be normal because you updated a plugin or something like that and it changes files. But sometimes if you haven't done anything to your site and all of a sudden you get an email that says files were changed, that's weird. Like you should be aware of something there. Let's see, default addresses. So this is, let me just show you what this is. This is the default WP admin. This is what we talked about in the hide your site. Why make things obvious? So if we did so this is the hide in the backend, okay? So WP login doesn't need to be WP login. We can make it, instead of login, we can make it like my login, something like that, and then it'll change it. So instead of WP -admin or -login, you just change it to my login. But everybody would have to know they need to go there. And if they go to the old one, it won't work. So that's what that does. And then let's see. So theme compatibility. That's pretty much most of the stuff there. Now I'm not going to do that because I won't remember that I did that, to be honest. And so, but if it was a site that was just one site that we managed, then that would be fine. But it is a cool feature. Let's see, common WordPress files. So this would be ways to protect some of the files that, again, don't need to be edited all the time. So it'll go through and automatically do that. Suspicious information. This is if sometimes when people are hitting your site, you have these really long URLs and they're trying to inject code in there. So sometimes that can be helpful. And when in doubt, what you could do is you could try it and fix it, and if it breaks something on your site, because again, there are plugins that sometimes use this feature, and they'll warn you about that. But if it does break something, just uncheck it, and then it puts everything back, which is kind of cool. So let's see, changing WordPress installation. There's a bunch of other stuff in here. This is interesting. This feature, this little XML RPC, what this does is allow you to post content remotely. So if you're using a service, if you're not going into your WordPress to actually post, but you're using some other service that automatically posts to your WordPress site, that's how they're doing it. They use this XML RPC thing. The problem is other people can also use that. And so if you are using it as a third party, you sort of have to keep it turned on. You have to keep that feature turned on, and it's on by default. But if you're not using that feature, in other words, if you always go into WordPress and just update it automatically, or like update it on your own, you're not using a third-party system to do that, then just turn this off. Like, why even have that there? So I'm actually going to turn this off because we won't ever do that. We're always going to log in and just post natively. So I'm going to go ahead and completely disable it. So, and again, prevents features such as Jetpack. So now we have Jetpack installed. So we would go, okay, well, that's a good to know. So let's turn that back. And Jetpack is the WordPress.com plugin that comes from WordPress that gives you a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do. But because those two things connect, they connect via XML RPC. So we're going to disable trackbacks and pingbacks, which aren't really useful for us in this case, especially since it's an example site. So we're going to go to that level. And then we're going to go back to our dashboard. Let's see. Profiles for users without content are publicly available. Okay, let's fix that. Let's fix that. So if we have users that are out there that don't have content posted, why would we want that? So let's just get rid of those. So that way if we ever do create users and they don't post anything, their user accounts aren't showing. Go back to the dashboard. And you can see kind of how simple this thing is. I mean, you can get more complex. So if you're really into this, you can see a bunch of stuff. And this is other things. So these are more lower priority things. You should rename content. Like, we're not going to do this because we already have posts. This is break post, so we're not going to do that. But you can see all the different stuff in here that you can play with. And again, I would encourage you to install this plugin. Again, we use it. We recommend it. It is great. It is always supported. It is always updated. They are iThemes is a great company because they constantly do things. Like, we went through the security webinars. They have a 4-hour course on webinar security that they did, and that's kind of or website security, I should say. And that's what we went through to learn some of these tricks too. So it's a really, really great plugin. Okay, so I think that covers the majority of this episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.